The world, of course, lost a music legend 3 years ago when Prince was found dead from an accidental drug overdose in his Paisley Park home.
Well, he left behind a legacy, including an unfinished memoir that he was working on with an author before he died. And since then, that author has continued to work on the book alone, which he has now completed. Prince titled it The Beautiful Ones. Please welcome writer and editor Dan Piepenbring.
Dan, it's so good to have us with you. Just want to let people know what you were doing when Prince found you, right? Because you were an online editor at the Paris Review.
Right.
And Prince was searching for someone to co-write his memoir.
Yeah.
How did he come to pick you? How did this go down?
Well, I had a literary agent at the time who was like, hey, Prince is writing a book. And I was like, I have to help. And he's like, okay, well, you probably won't. You've written 0 books. That's not good. But Prince always liked to nurture and foster young talent. He did that in his bands. He did that with the people he worked with on the business side. And fortunately for me, he wanted that in a writer as well. So he wanted someone who'd never written a book before, someone who had no preconceived ideas about what a memoir could or should be, because he didn't want a book that was like anything else out there.
And he had you write an essay.
That's right, yeah, I had to write a personal statement, and I sent it in the same day I got the assignment, and 48 hours later, I was shaking his hand at Paisley Park.
Wow. So wild.
Yeah.
So let's go there with those early meetings, because you, as you just said, you were invited to Paisley Park, invited into his home. What were some of those early meetings with Prince like? I mean, I'm guessing starstruck?
Yes, yeah, but he's so good at putting people at ease. I mean, I met him, I shook his hand. We're in Paisley Park, candles lit everywhere, doves cooing.
For real?
Yes.
No, you're being serious.
I'm being serious,
Oh,
live
okay.
doves. And we went into his conference room, and you know, he would keep me on my toes because he made me read the first statement the first sentence of my statement, which was, when I listen to Prince, I feel like I'm breaking the law. And he's like, now, why did you write that? Because I live in harmony. And you know, when you see the candles and the doves, that is a man living a harmonious life. So I think I was talking to a different earlier, like the 80s Prince, who was more of the lawbreaker. But 2016 Prince, very friendly. We went on to talk. He took me on tour with him in Australia, showed me his handwritten pages that are really at the heart of the memoir. And we kept talking for 3 months,
Well, Prince had really, really big plans for this book. He said he wanted it to be the biggest music book of all time, but also for it to solve racism. I mean, these are quite lofty goals. Talk to us about the hopes that he tried to express to you and how he planned on this book bringing this vision to life.
Yeah, he did not just want a conventional celebrity tell-all. He wanted something that would inspire people. He said if the book could be about one overarching thing, it would be about freedom, and the freedom to create autonomously without anyone telling you what to do or how to do it. And he imagined a book where our voices would mix. He was going to do some of the writing, I would do some of it, and then the reader would come away wanting to make art, you know, to make a society where artists could thrive.
I'm so curious about your dynamic, because, I mean, this is Prince, and you were co-writing with Prince his memoirs. So that's a really intimate process. Like, you really have to get to know someone and away from the glare of the spotlight.
Yeah.
So what was it like to have a meal with Prince? What was it like to get a phone call? Did you text? Does he only text in symbols? Does he, like, can you just give us some insight on that?
Yeah, we would talk mostly over the phone or in person, and even if it was at an after party or something, he would always cup my ear and speak very clearly. If he wanted to talk to you, he was giving you 100% of his attention, and he expected the same in return. So it was a very intense, concentrated talk, but he was so funny too, and so lively, and even just like giving you a side eye or like a tilt of the head, he could make you just crack up. So there was always a lot of joy and laughter in the room too.
We all know about the presentation of Prince, the performances, and even the way that he carried himself and the way that he dressed. So as you were working together, is he wearing clothes like this, or does he wear sweatpants?
The most dressed down I ever saw him would be when he put on a beanie and then like a top with his own head on it, actually. So, if you like to relax, just put on a t-shirt with yourself on. But no, he was always dressed to the nines, very fastidious. And even in the book, he remembers watching his parents get dressed up for a night on the town, and you could see how he was the product of their own fashion sense, you know, just,
I mean, on a sad note, you actually spoke to Prince for the last time just 4 days before he died. And I'm sure you've replayed that conversation a million times in your head. So what was that conversation like?
It was great. He had had some health troubles. He'd been in the news, and he just wanted to tell me that he was okay. And that really meant a lot to me. You know, he didn't have to pick up the phone, but he did. And then right away, we started to talk about his parents again. And he said that the central dilemma of his life had been trying to figure out how his mother and father were both living in him at the same time. His father, very disciplined, religious, great work ethic. His mother, spontaneous, adventurous, free, someone who never wanted anyone telling her what to do. And he embodied both of them. And that's what he was thinking about really until the end. He said you could break down When Doves Cry, lyric by lyric, just thinking about his mom and dad. So that was so special to hear that from him.
Wow.
Looking back, you know, were there any signs, like you spent a chunk of time with him, were there any signs that he was struggling with some kind of an addiction?
No, I never saw it. I mean, he might look tired sometimes, but that's because, like his father, he was always working really hard, you know, long hours in the studio, always trying to hone his live show. So I never saw any sign of struggle. He was always so full of energy and electricity, and it was really contagious. I mean, he was someone who could make you feel like you could do the impossible, like you could write a book that would solve racism. So I never saw any sign of that. He was just a very humble, alive man every time I was with him.
The American Music Awards were last night. We just talked about it on the top of the show.
Yeah.
In 1985, Prince delivered a performance of Purple Rain at the AMAs that's known to be probably the greatest performance at the AMAs of all time.
Yeah. I was -1, and even I know how good it is.
Among industry experts, right? So last night, Taylor Swift was named Artist of the Decade. She has been recently involved in a dispute over her masters, something that Prince was fighting for in his time. Did he ever talk to you about that?
Yes, that was one of the things we would talk about most, because one thing he wanted to accomplish with the book was helping artists, especially black artists, realize that they did not need to take what the music industry was giving them. They did not need to feel exploited. And he would always say, if you don't own your masters, then your masters own you. So I think he would want all artists to say, you know, forget the boilerplate contract. We need something where I'm in control, where you're giving me the respect that I deserve as an equal partner in this venture.
Well, what a fascinating conversation, Dan. Thank you so much for coming here and bringing us this book. Thank you. The book is entitled The Beautiful Ones. It is available now, and what a read. We'll be right back right after this.